I'm Paul Amwerda and I'm here with Derek Joyce, and this is I'm Not the Expert, but this is a podcast where we discuss everything from the most complex topic that we know nothing about to the simplest topic that we probably also know nothing about. So put the kettle on, make yourself comfy and join us.
Here we fucking go.
Here we go. I'm just putting myself on silent here now. There we go. That was the last minute. And I've just put it back on.
Yeah, well done.
There we go. Silent. Right. So.
Don't show me.
Sorry.
Fucking
Sorry,
season
Dad.
1 and season 2. We have our...
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And it's the middle of January. And I don't know how far into January you go before it
Stop saying Happy New Year.
Before it becomes just the wrong thing to say.
Well, I'm saying it to our listeners because we haven't been in touch since before Christmas. Yep. So anyway, so Happy New Year and hope you have a lovely Christmas and all that jazz.
But as I was saying, we have our tells when we're not stuck for the words to say, but just wandering off the track and not sure where we're headed.
Yeah.
And I've loads, which I'm sure you'll hear over the course of season 3 and the course of this episode. But Paul has so. He just starts with so. And
I
do
tend to just start
and
with
I
so.
don't like that.
And Dell doesn't like it for some reason.
And we keep correcting each other. Like,
I don't know. So, anyway.
see, there we go.
Right, anyway, listen, this is what I've wanted to do for ages. I have a bit of an obsession with East Germany, the Berlin Wall. I've even got a piece of the Berlin Wall at home. It's something I've always been fascinated about. It's one of my earliest memories was the fall of the Berlin Wall and watching it live on television, which we're going to get to later.
How old were you then?
I was 11.
Well, you were young.
It was my 11th birthday was the day it came down. So there you go. So I'll always remember that. And I've had a fascination for years about it. Bought a piece of the Berlin Wall online. Came with certificates of authenticity and stuff.
Okay.
From the German government.
You know me and...
I know it is legit.
You remember me and your uncle had a piece of coal from the Titanic and how cynical I got.
No. This has certificates of authenticity from
my
the
cousin
German
has a piece of the Berlin Wall that she went over there and she
took herself.
So it's authentic.
Yeah, it's crazy they're still selling it though, isn't it? And there is actually parts of it still standing.
Yeah,
I'm dying to get over and see it. Cannot wait to get to Berlin.
It's a memorial.
I'm definitely going to do it this year. But anyway, right, so just to give some background on this, right, I have an obsession with East Germany, as I said. I'm actually sitting here right now in an East German soccer top, right? It's just my thing. I'm not a commie. I'm far from a commie. I am very much left-wing.
Yeah.
But I just... what I've come to discover now over the last couple of years where I've really got into it and read a lot of books and listened to a lot of... I'm actually going to name drop another podcast here, actually, Radio GDR. It's a fantastic podcast. If you're anyway interested in what we're talking about today, get on there and have a listen. Surprisingly enough, they haven't done an episode on what we're about to do, so that's pretty cool to check last night. But yeah, they do some fascinating stories. They interview people who lived through those times and stuff, and it's a really good podcast, so get on that if you get a chance. But anyway, yeah, so... the more I've read over the last couple of years, the more I've realised that, we were taught, back in school, at that time or whatever, East bad, West good, East Germany, Russia, whatever.
Do you know why that was?
Because it was maintaining capitalism.
Dogs.
Yeah,
that's why it
absolute,
was.
Yeah.
The West Devil. Yeah,
exactly. Jesus, now I said I'm not a communist. I'm not so sure about the hell. Right?
Capitalist pig dogs.
But anyway, right, but he's exactly right. The reason that communism failed in East Germany was because the West made sure it couldn't succeed. And we'll get on to that later. But that's not what the episode is about today at all, right? Obviously, life in East Germany wasn't a bed of roses for anyone.
Yeah, but
for most people.
Yeah. Okay, but at all. For fucking anybody.
Well, the Politburo had it pretty good.
Yeah.
In fairness, which is, again, one of the main reasons communism tends to fail,
But I mean...
Animal Farm.
There's capitalist governments have it great and the people don't.
Yeah.
So it's not just communism. And communism is a failed fucking experiment.
It is. But so is capitalism.
Yeah, well.
But it's failing. We're in the dying reaches of it. But anyway, I don't want to get too political.
In the beginning of season 1, we said we weren't doing religion
or politics
or sports, and
Yeah.
we've pretty much done them
we've
all.
pretty much done the wrong now at this stage. Yeah, no, we have. But I don't want to get
We're
too
full of
political on
shit.
this, because this is just a fascinating story. It's a human story, and I'm really looking forward to getting onto it. But anyway, right, so I just want to set a little bit of context for our listeners, Del, who might not be familiar with the whole East-West thing. You know, it was 40 odd years ago. So, okay, so in August 19th, well, hang on, let's go back a little bit further. At the end of the Second World War, Berlin was split up into 4 zones by the Allied nations, you know, spoils of war kind of thing, yeah?
Yeah.
So you had your British zone, your US zone, your French zone, and then in the east you had your Russian zone.
Yeah.
Right? And they all lived happily, you know, coexisting for a while.
They all lived suspiciously ever after.
Yes, pretty much. Initially, things weren't too bad.
Yeah, no.
You know, and then the whole kind of, you know, the Cold War started, and Germany was split into 2 states. So you had East Germany and West Germany. But interestingly enough, and something I didn't really kind of cop onto until much later, was that Berlin was actually situated inside East Germany. Deep inside East Germany.
And it was split up into the same kind of 4 zones.
Yes. Yeah, no. Berlin was split into 4 zones. The country was split in 2.
Yeah, no, but the 4 zones I'm talking about are the US, the UK, France, Germany. It was the same. It was the same format that initially was done in Germany. It was broken up into 4 zones. Berlin was also broken up into those same 4 zones.
Yeah, no, that's what I had said. Germany wasn't broken up into 4 zones. Berlin was. Germany was broken 2. You had the Federal Republic of Germany. You had the GDR. Berlin, the city, was held by the Allies after it.
Yeah, but there was, after that split, there was still, it was broken up into
right up to 1989.
It was controlled in 4 zones.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
but the country wasn't.
The whole country was.
No.
Yes,
no,
it was.
Wasn't. No,
yes, it was.
No,
yeah,
absolutely.
It was. Absolutely was. 100%.
Okay. Any Germans out there to care to correct Del on that one, please?
Or
get
Paul.
in touch. No, Del, Jesus, I've read so much on this stuff.
Yep,
it's my favourite topic. Right, you had the Federal Republic of Germany, which was German-controlled eventually.
Yeah.
They had their own German government.
Yeah.
You had the East Germany, which was Russian-controlled essentially, but they had their own government and their own thing, yeah. Berlin was continuously under occupation from 1945 to 1989. So the Russian sector of Berlin was Russian sovereign territory. The French section of Berlin was French sovereign territory. The UK section of Berlin was UK sovereign. Yeah, that was initially. That's
what I said.
Yeah, in 1945.
Yeah,
but 1947, it was split into 2.
Okay, we're saying the same thing. We're just saying it.
Basically, yes. So when the Federal Republic of Germany was founded in 1947, I believe, and the GDR was founded at the same time.
Yeah.
The Allies relinquished their occupation of the entire country, but they maintained Berlin right up until 1990, until the wall came down.
Yeah, East Berlin, West Berlin, which was deep in Berlin.
In East Germany. Yeah.
And people could just travel to a zone controlled by a Western power in Berlin and then just travel out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just fucking leave East Berlin or East Germany.
You could fly out of the airport in West Berlin.
Or walk.
Well, you couldn't really walk because then you're going back into East Germany again.
No, I mean the people in Eastern Germany could travel
walk
to
into West Berlin.
A bus station, a train station, or walk into
across
a Western controlled zone.
Yeah, and then jump on a plane to the West.
Yeah.
Whereas, anyway, as the Cold War started to heat up, and there's an oxymoron if I've ever heard one, and the brain drain, as they call it, the qualified, the well-educated,
and they were
doctors,
really well-educated.
Yeah, were tempted by bribes often, or the kind of promise of a better life and more money. And because you have to understand, under socialism in the East as well, it's very important to understand that whether you swept a street or whether you were a brain surgeon, you earned pretty much the same wage. That is communism. It's everybody gets their share. Everybody gets an equal share of everything. And that's
the concept.
Yeah, that is the concept. So a brain surgeon, let's say, could earn a hell of a lot more money in West Germany than he was going to get in East Germany.
Yep.
And then you had the whole concept of actually buying or paying people to leave the East and come to the West as well, which the Americans in particular were quite fond of doing. Obviously, it's very difficult. It's a new country starting in a new economic model, trying to build itself up, and all their best people are just fleeing because they can make more money elsewhere. In their infinite wisdom, shall we say, on August 14th, 1961, at midnight or thereabouts, the Russian army began rolling barbed wire across the border, essentially from the other zones into the Russian zone. And the Berlin Wall was born, or the anti-fascist protection rampart, as it was known in the East, was born. Families were divided. People who were on the West were stuck. Well, no, anyone on the West could go into the East. It was the other way. So anyone on the East whose parents were on the West or anything, they were essentially trapped.
You could win the indoor, but you couldn't go back.
Yeah, that was it. Like, you were trapped and you were done. And eventually then, obviously people started to climb the barbed wire. There's great footage, actually, you'll see it online. I'll probably put it on the Facebook page if I get a chance, of one of the Volkspolice.
Yeah.
And he's there, like, while the Russian soldiers are putting the wire out and he's on guard, and you can just see him think, he thinks, fuck this. And he makes a run for it and jumps over the barbed wire into the West. Which I thought was gas.
You just have to think he has nothing keeping him in the East. Family, or anything like that. Everybody, and he just went, fuck this shit.
And he jumps and runs for his freedom. Initially on Friedrichstrasse in Berlin, there was an apartment block, or the whole street basically was terraced apartment blocks. The front entrance was in the East. The back windows were in the West. So people started to jump out the back windows.
Yeah.
The third and fourth floor. You had firemen holding blankets below in the West, and they were jumping into the blankets and stuff. So the Stasi came around and bricked up the entire east side, so they weren't allowed to get out that way. Obviously, tunnels were dug. Some succeeded, very few. I'm actually going to name drop another podcast here as well.
Stop name dropping.
No, I am, because if people are interested in this, and we're not in competition, right? The BBC Insights Tunnel 29 is a fantastic documentary about one of those tunnels, and it's absolutely fascinating. So get on that as well when you get a chance. You had tunnels, you had people jumping over the barbed wire, jumping out windows, swimming canals to get across. There was all sorts. But what also needs to be remembered as well, and when we get into our story later on, it's not set in Berlin. It's it's outside of that. Like, Berlin was encircled by the Berlin Wall. As I said, it was inside East Berlin. But the entire Germany border, or the internal German border, whichever way you want to describe it, was completely fortified. Now, they didn't build a wall, but it was barbed wire, there was minefields, there was automatic machine guns,
guard
there was
dogs,
guard
dogs, sand pits, so they could see where the track marks were, all that kind of
quicksand, you name it. Yeah, they had all sorts of fucking crazy fucking defences. And it was also, in Berlin, you had two walls as well, which people, you kind of might not actually realise. You had a wall, then you had like a no man's land in between, and another wall, and in that no man's land you had dog patrols, it was mined, there was automatic machine guns that were set off by pressure sensors, there was all sorts of and this is back in the 50s, like some serious technology.
Well, we'll get on to German technology later in this podcast, or in another one.
Yes, we have another one planned as well, which is going to be very interesting.
And again, I'm not a commie. I'm not against capitalist pig dogs or anything like that. But Germany was so close to winning the Second World War.
Oh, I know, and I think I can speak for both of us when I say we are absolutely vehemently anti-fascist. Yeah,
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you mention that previous to the barbed wire getting rolled out in Berlin, 3.5 million had already left. Left from east to west.
Yeah.
That's
a brain drain, and
Yeah, highly educated.
Yeah. Well, and not all of them were. Some of them was like,
I'm sure there's one or two dumbasses in there, but they were smart enough to want to leave.
But there was the bright lights of the West, and the McDonald's and the Coca-Cola, and there was that. Do you know what I mean?
And the freedom.
One of those things. The freedom. And I'm going to get onto this later, but how free are you?
You see,
how free is any of us?
You're approaching that from a Western mindset. I'm talking about in the fucking East, where Soviet controlled everything.
Yeah.
I mean, there was free education and free healthcare, but there was fuck all else was free. So if you've got the bright lights of, we can, like you saw it in The Hunt for Red October, which I know is a movie, and I know it's probably fact based, but I'm calling it fiction.
No, it is.
But he says, I'd like to live in Montana and travel state to state, and he says, can you do that? Travel state to state? Yeah. And Sean Connery's character says, Ramius says,
no, I understand that.
He says, and he goes, no papers, and he goes, no papers. So there's that freedom that you look at and you go, oh, that's the bright lights.
Yeah, but you have to understand as well. And, absolutely. And come here, listen, by the end of the fucking GDR, it was a completely oppressive fucking state, and no one's going to argue that point at all. Do you know what I mean? The Stasi were fucking totally oppressing everybody. But my point is that they had to. I'm not justifying it, right? And it got to the stage where Honecker was a paranoid fucking lunatic anyway. Right? Erich Honecker was the head of the Stasi.
Yeah.
He was just a fucking nutjob. He was a paranoid fucking nutcase. So
well, tell people who he was.
Okay, he was the head of the Stasi, which is the secret police of East Germany, basically the Gestapo. Now, just to give an idea of just how fucking paranoid they were, right? During Hitler's reign, it's estimated that 1 in 25, I believe, of the German population were spying for the Gestapo. That's a high number. That's that's a fucking high number when you consider it. Under Erich Honecker, 1 in 6.
Yeah, was suspected of being.
Now they targeted, homosexuals. They would catch them in compromising situations and blackmail them into spying on their family. And it was illegal to be homosexual in East Germany.
Everybody. Well, yeah, in many places, but that wasn't everybody.
No, that's what I'm saying. But they would target vulnerable people like that, and they would blackmail them in.
Yeah.
And then, the whole state became so paranoid that even if you weren't being watched, you felt like you were being watched.
Yeah. And there's a guy, I wasn't going to say it, but there's a guy I'll talk about later, and I'm not going to go into it now. He escaped to the West, and his ma was such a staunch communist supporter that she never spoke to him again, and she disowned them publicly.
Yeah. So, and that happened quite a lot.
So it did. It was
and that was the other thing as well. One of the other kind of underhanded methods that the Stasi used, and I'm going to go into the sort of mad shit that the Stasi do now. Actually, the Stasi headquarters in Normannenstrasse. That was the place you did not want to fucking end up. If you were taken there, right, you would have blood taken, you'd have hair taken, you would be kept in a cell with the light on for days. Then they turn the light off, and as soon as you close your eyes, the light would be back on. They would play white noise into your cell for days on end. All that kind of, fucking sensory deprivation and stuff, sleep deprivation. And then they would interrogate you. They would take blood, they would take hair samples. But the fucking most bizarre one was they would place a cloth on the chair you were sitting on. And then they would remove the cloth and seal it in a glass jar to keep your scent. So
that's not bizarre.
They were just taking every bit of anything they could take from you. That's,
Yeah.
And they had warehouses full of these fucking cloth scents, that were kept in, and German efficiency, and we all know about German efficiency, and, and the nefarious ways German efficiency can affect the world. But that, there was that alphabetized numerical order, whatever, of these literally millions of glass jars with little pieces of cloth that were just kept in a warehouse. Like, ostensibly, I think the idea was that if they had to hunt you down, they could, they could use search dogs.
No, Jesus, that wasn't me. And it was like, it fucking was. And here's how we know why.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
You have to wonder how close, because the Germans were so far ahead in technology and everything, which we'll go into in later podcasts, but all that kind of crack.
Yeah.
But how close, and I'm not saying they were close, but how close they were to cracking the human genome.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Because everything you just said is the right path to be on.
Yeah.
To crack the genome.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what they were DNA. Basically doing. They were building a biological profile.
Exactly.
Without having the actual identifiers,
Yeah.
Right, so basically you'd be interrogated there and, forced to sign a confession, essentially, yeah? And then there would be a kangaroo court where the verdict is already decided, and you're just there for sentencing.
Yeah.
And you'd be sent off for anything, from 2 to 10 years.
Sounds like a country, I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds like North Korea.
It does. Somewhere a bit closer to home, I thought you were talking.
Yeah, well, there's closer to home as well, but I don't want to be.
Yeah.
Pointed at
it is. And again, what have they got in common? They're also communist. So, But anyway, underneath that kind of oppressive panopticon, I mean, they were basically living in a panopticon. And for anyone who doesn't know what a panopticon is, it's a prison. Actually, Kilmainham Jail in Dublin, if you've ever been to that, the west wing of Kilmainham Jail is a panopticon. Right?
I didn't know that.
It is, yeah, because you can see everywhere from everywhere else within that hall. You can see every cell door from anywhere on that floor. And that's basically what it is. It's one guard.
Everything is under observation.
Can observe everybody all at once. And that's what panopticon means. It's like and you can't see the guard who's observing you. That's the other thing as well. They had like a hut thing in Kilmainham Jail, so they couldn't see.
So you don't know if they're looking at you. It's
so
like
you don't know.
It's like your security camera stuck in the roof and it's a half dome.
Yeah.
And if you break down the word panoptics.
Yes.
That's all it is.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Sees everything, all seeing, panopticon, all seeing. So that was the idea, and the whole country was basically panopticon.
One big west wing of Kilmainham Jail.
Yeah. So you never knew whether you were being watched, but you always just assumed that you were.
Yeah.
And more often than not, you were being. So it's a pretty oppressive way to have to live. But, and again, and I don't want to keep going back to this point, the reason for that was because the West were so intent on ensuring that communism could not take root in Central Europe. And they played some pretty fucking dirty tricks to make sure that the GDR failed. So had they not done that, then the GDR may not have been so paranoid and gone so far the other way. But anyway, right, so there were several escapes. As Del said, before the Berlin Wall went up, you could just walk over and over you go. But after August 61, that was it. Now, you could apply to leave.
Yeah.
And some people were given permission to leave, but very, very few.
Yeah, and it was such a hefty bureaucratic process to apply to leave and do the paperwork and fill it out. It was a subtle way of saying to people, don't fucking bother.
Yeah. And now, actually, just before I get onto that as well, I just want to mention as well the other kind of, drab grey stuff and, why it was so shit. You could wait up to 14 years to be allowed to buy a car in East Germany. And even then, it was an East German-made Trabant that everybody drove. Like, there was no choice. There was no options. There was an East German-built Trabant, which is a cool-looking car. And I'd actually love one now just for the, for the historical significance of it. It's like a little Morris Minor, basically, is what it's like. But they were shit. They were utterly shit.
You want to know what a Trabant looks like? Google U2 famous car.
Oh, Acton Baby, the cover, is it? Yeah.
The Trabant.
That's a Trabby, yeah. Very true. Actually, the car in Harry Potter that goes flying, that's very similar to a Trabant.
Yeah,
it's not a Trabant, but it is very similar to it.
Isn't that a Morris Minor?
I think it is a Morris, yeah.
I think it is. Well, he's a
No, it's a Ford. It's a Ford. Rosie got the bloody Lego for Christmas of it, and it actually has the make of the car in the title. I'm not sure. It's a Ford or something.
Okay.
Ford Anglia.
Okay.
It's a Ford Anglia. Right. Anyway. Okay, so needless to say, quite a few people weren't exactly happy living in the East, right? But it wasn't everybody then, and it honestly wasn't everybody. And that's something that I've come to discover through listening to the podcast, through reading books and stuff, that a lot of East Germans miss those days, even now. It's very strange, I think. Because it's always kind of, on this side of the Iron Curtain, it's always kind of sold to us that everyone wanted out. They all wanted out, and only a lucky few managed to escape. That wasn't the case at all.
Over 5,000 people managed to escape the Berlin Wall.
Yeah, but it's a country of what, 30, 40 million people?
I mean, yeah, but I know, but for all its fucking sand traps and machine guns, 5,000 people.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of those would have been in the early days. In the first couple of months of the top barbed wire and stuff, because the other thing as well is, from 1961 up to 1989 when it fell, it was constantly evolving. Like, they were changing the wall, they were putting kind of rounded capstones on it at one stage. It made it even more difficult to climb.
Well, what was it? It was 12 feet high-ish with a rounded top, so you couldn't Scram. If you've ever tried to climb over a branch that's too thick, a tree trunk or something like that, and you just can't get any purchase or grip on it, that's exactly what it was like.
And you had to kind of, it was an overhang as well, like that curved capstone was overhanging the wall, so you had to kind of get, So it was, they basically, they kept modifying it until they hit on that kind of perfect thing, and then there was very few escapes after that. Well, over the wall, certainly.
And I read that guards weren't given the explicit instruction to shoot on sight. They just did.
I thought they were told to shoot escapers.
They just did. In the start, they weren't told, you shoot any fucker that goes over this wall. And they just started shooting.
Yeah, now later on in the game, they said.
But then they were indoctrinated. So immediately starting, they weren't.
Yeah.
But through indoctrination, they were told it's your duty.
Yeah. And the guys on the western side could actually see them shoot.
Yeah, and they
couldn't return fire unless they were fired upon themselves.
Yep.
Which never usually happened, of course. So anyway, as I was saying, right, so or as Del was saying, 5,000 people escaped, right? But some of those escapes were fantastic, and I know Del's gonna talk about some of the more unusual ones later. But so what really jumped out at me was 1979. You had two guys called Peter Strelzik and Gunther Wetzel, right? And they worked for the VEB polymer factory in. Now I hope I pronounced this right? Because it has that little kind of squiggly that looks like a capital B.
It's two S's.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So Poznek, right? The VEB polymer factory in Poznek in East Germany, which is about 30 kilometers from Leipzig, I think. They decided, each individually, get the fuck out of here, right? And they were like, they were good friends in work, but East Germany being East Germany, neither of them wanted to be the first to suggest it, just in case.
Because you don't know who's a spy or an informant.
Exactly. I mean, your own family could be spying on you. But but anyway, eventually the idea was muted by one of them. Yeah. And they were both like, let's fucking do it, right? So the original plan was to build a helicopter and fly over.
Who the fuck did they think they are? Da Vinci?
Peter was a mechanical engineer and Gunther was in that field as well. They worked in a plastics factory, so. But anyway, so they were going to build a helicopter, and then they decided that they probably couldn't get their hands on an engine big enough to power it, and they had decided that they were either all of them were going or none of them were going. So
who's all of them?
So they were both married. They both had 2 children.
Right.
Gunther's children were a lot younger than Peter's, and I'll get onto that later. So the helicopter plan was abandoned, and then they came up with a hot air balloon.
Makes sense.
Okay. They acquired lining material initially from a leather bag factory under false pretenses of saying that they were building. I think they said they were scouts or the equivalent to scouts in Germany, and that they were using this material to make tents for their scout troop. So that's how they were able to get this, I think it was 1,200 square feet of this lining material that, what's inside your handbags.
Yeah.
So they spent months.
Well, I don't know what's inside my handbag.
No, but you know what I mean? What's inside a handbag? You know what I mean, right? Okay, that kind of lining material, yeah? So they used that, right? And Gunther had an old manually operated sewing machine, like foot operated.
Yeah.
Foot pedal, and it took them months. Now they'd done their research. How big does the balloon need to be? How much air does it need in it? What temperature does it need to get to lift 8 people, blah.
Okay.
And a gondola. So they'd done all their research through library books and different things. And they built this fucking balloon. Right, so they spent about 4 months making this balloon. And when they went to inflate it, they realised that the material wasn't airtight.
Right.
It would not inflate. Completely useless. Not to be deterred.
What do you use to inflate it?
I'm going to get onto that now in a minute as well.
Okay.
Just bear with me. Because it's actually ingenious what they did.
Okay.
So just bear with me. And again, this is all Peter's engineering. His engineering was incredibly
sophisticated.
It actually wasn't. It was so unsophisticated, but just incredibly clever. So having failed in their first attempt, they decided to try again and be a little bit more discerning in what they were doing. Right? So they purchased various different materials in local stores, including umbrella material and various samples of taffeta. Now, I have no idea what taffeta is. I think...
Spell it.
Taffeta. I think what it is, it's what they use for sails on sailing boats.
That makes sense.
And I'll tell you
umbrella
why.
Umbrella material sucks.
And I'll tell you why I think that is. Funny enough, umbrella material doesn't suck. And I'm going to get onto that now too. Right? So they
maybe
sampled,
I buy cheap umbrellas.
And maybe in 1979 it was, probably less kind of synthetic or whatever that we have now. They tried these different types of materials, right? And they've done some incredibly scientific testing on them, like fair play to these lads. They knew what they were doing, like. These weren't two uneducated men, just,
Yeah, no, I know, but how do you do testing on materials and keep it quiet?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's fucking nuts.
I'm about to tell you now. Right, so they use ovens to heat test the material to see what it melt under the heat of the flame.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they also created a test rig from a vacuum cleaner and a water-filled glass tube to see which of the material would create enough of a vacuum to exert the most suction on the water.
Read that again. And I'm not saying you read it wrong.
I'm taking this from reading. I've taken this verbatim from an article.
Yeah, no,
in my head, I can't even.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not looking at you.
No, what I'm saying is in my own head, I can't even visualize what they were doing.
Yeah.
But anyway, it says they used a water-filled glass tube and a vacuum cleaner to see which material will create enough vacuum to exert the most suction on the water and determined which was the most airtight. So I'm assuming,
I get it. Yeah.
They would have covered the vacuum cleaner with a material, held it to the water, and whichever one didn't suck up any water
was better.
Was the job. That's what I'm thinking it was, yeah. So anyway, they decided that although the umbrella material was the best of the three options, it was more expensive.
I must buy the shittiest umbrellas. I've been standing in the pissings of rain under an umbrella and looking up at the rain come down. You catch sight of the inside of your umbrella, and I heard myself think, that fucking umbrella is letting in at the stitching.
Right.
Because you can see a bit of the sky through it, like a pinprick of the sky through it. And I was like, this piece of shit. So I'm obviously buying cheap umbrellas.
Well, you didn't have Gunter sewing your umbrella.
Yeah, that's probably.
And
I also didn't live in a communist state.
No, exactly. And it doesn't have to be absolutely airtight either. You know what I mean? There's also a hole in the top to kind of relieve pressure too in a hot air balloon, believe it or not. But it needs to be airtight enough to obviously hold enough of the air.
That's what I was thinking.
For it to raise. But anyway, so they went with the taffeta because it was slightly cheaper than the umbrella material. Now, they had already lost, I think it was 600, the equivalent of $600
Yeah.
On
there's probably millions
on the
and
failed balloon
with
the with the handbag the handbag lining failure. So they had already lost a few bob. They weren't rich people, they were living in East Germany. So they went with the cheaper option, which wasn't too bad, whereas the nylon was a complete fail. So anyway, so off they went, right, and they drove 160 kilometers to Leipzig to buy Leipzig, sorry, I was calling.
And I'm correcting you.
You are correct.
I'm correcting you because when I was in school, I was putting on an accumulator bet, and there was a couple of teachers, and I was saying, lads, give me your opinions on this. And then we were going through the teams, and it was Champions League.
Yeah. So
and I went and Leipzig versus somebody, Sparta Prague, whoever the fuck it was, and the German teacher heard one of the others because I'd said Leipzig, and she let it go. And one of the others said, I think based on their past record, I would say Leipzig are going to. And the other teacher said, yeah, Leipzig is the one I go for. And she went, that's enough.
It's
she
Leipzig.
Went, right, it's Leipzig. And she said, say it back to me. And she had each one of us say it back. So I'll never forget. It's Leipzig.
Deadly. Red Bull Leipzig, Or Dynamo Leipzig as they were then. They were the Stasi team.
Were they?
Yeah.
Wow.
Dynamo Leipzig, yeah. There you go. Yeah, so they drove the 160 kilometers down to Leipzig to buy material, right? And they posed as sailors. See, this is where I was on about that, yeah?
Yeah.
And They basically said that they were making sails for their sailboats. Right, so that's what they were buying, this, massive amount of this material.
In a society of paperwork coming out your fucking ears.
And that's where I'm about to go.
No, and I'm thinking of a couple of things we're going to talk about later, which you'll know why I'm bringing this point up, but go for it.
Right, so they were buying so much of it that the place that they were buying it didn't have it on hand and had to order it. And they'd have it in the next day.
Yeah.
So alarm bells began to go off immediately.
Whose alarm bells? The Stasi's?
Gunther's, no.
Right. It was like, come back
like,
tomorrow and we'll have it.
Yeah, they were like, okay, what do we do here? What do we do? Do we do it? Do we go back? Do we not go back? And they eventually said, fuck it, we've nothing to lose. So, fucking...
Well, there's a fucking assertion to make.
Yeah. So they were like, fuck it, we have to get out. This is the only way we're going to get this material. So let's just fucking take a chance and we'll go back and we'll get it. And they went back and they got the material and there was no problem. There was no issue at all with it. So they went back and they got the material. Right, and on the way back, they also picked up a small electric motor for Gunther's sewing machine.
Right, so you wouldn't
have to do it by foot.
Feathering the throttle all the time.
Exactly, you didn't have to do it by foot the whole way. It took them 10 days to make the second balloon. That had taken them 3 months to do the first one. Yeah, so the electric motor was a godsend for poor old Gunther's foot.
Although I'd say he had great calf muscles on whatever leg he was using.
Well, funny enough, I'll get onto that later too. Jesus, you've set me up lovely there now, but too early, and we'll get to it. Right, so they created a balloon-shaped bag that was 15 metres, right, or 49 feet wide, 20 metres or 66 feet long. Now, here we get on to Peter's ingenuity, his mechanical genius, right? The burner was made using 2 11-kilogram bottles of liquid propane household gas.
Right? Propane?
Yeah.
Okay, regular propane.
Yeah. Hoses, water pipe, and a nozzle, and a piece of stove pipe for a flume. Right? Cool. Right? They constructed a blower. You were asking me earlier, how did they inflate the balloon? Well, here we go, right? They constructed a blower with a 14 horsepower motorbike engine that Peter stripped from his motorbike. They attached 2, I think they were 10 feet long, fan blades to the motor, and then they used jump cables and the starter motor from Peter's Trabant to start the engine. Right, so that blew. They also fashioned a homemade flamethrower, which would give additional heat as they were filling the balloon.
Yeah.
Right, it took 10 minutes to fill it, which was pretty good,
The noise, which is why I was asking you earlier, have you ever been in a hot air balloon?
Yes. No, sorry, I've ever been. No.
How do you get that wrong?
No, I've seen hot air balloons. I've been close to
Yes, I have. Have you? No.
I've been around hot air balloons when they're being inflated and the noise.
Fucking the noise.
It's like with bouncy castles. They use the same kind of thing to fucking inflate them. It's
the noise of the fucking
generator.
things.
Yeah, but that's also what I'm going to get onto now in a minute. They're out in the middle of fucking nowhere doing this shit. Out in the forest. Yeah, so they filled out. I love this. The gondolas. They've gone to all this effort and, ingenuity and all this. And the gondola was made from a piece of sheet metal, 4 metal posts, and washing lines. So think of a little mini boxing ring there.
Yeah.
That's essentially what the gondola was, right? With washing lines so you wouldn't fall out, yeah?
This is attempt number 2.
Yes, this is attempt number 2. Well, no, sorry, this is their first attempt.
Did they not fail on the first? The test was the ones that failed.
Yeah. So they never even got the balloon to inflate the first time. Now they're actually, they're going to inflate the balloon now. So this is kind of test number 2. It's not attempt 1 yet, right?
Right, okay.
Anyway, so the balloon inflated. Everything was great. And then they realised it was too small for the 8 people.
Fuck's sake, I'd squeezed on it.
Yeah. No, it wouldn't lift them.
Right, okay. The balloon was too small, not the gondola.
No, the balloon was too small to lift all 8 people.
Okay.
So it was agreed that Peter and his family would go and Gunther and his would stay behind.
How do you agree that?
I don't know. I think, I'm going by the movie. There is a movie that this is all based on called Balloon. But like all movies, a lot of it is dramatised and made up. So I don't know. In the movie, it was that Gunther's wife's mother was unwell and she was reluctantly leaving and she decided that
that
maybe they'd stay.
That's a plausible thing,
right?
But
well, I couldn't find anything official on that as to why. It just said they they decided that Peter and his family would go. First attempt. On the 3rd of July 1979, the weather forecast was favourable with an easterly wind, so blowing from the east to the west, and good cloud cover. The Strelzik family lifted off from a clearing in a wooded area in a restricted zone, and that's very important. We'll come back to that. Peter, now here's more ingenuity from Peter. He's a fucking genius, this guy. He had fashioned an altimeter, or an altimeter.
Altimeter. It depends on what part of the world you're in.
Yeah. By modifying a barometer. So by his estimation with his rudimentary altimeter, they climbed at a rate of 4 meters per second and reached an altitude of 2,000 meters. The light wind was blowing them towards the border. However, the balloon entered the clouds, and water vapour condensing on the balloon added weight, and they began to quickly descend. They landed safely about 180 metres short of the border.
Oh, what a killer.
Yeah. After 26 minutes of flight, 180 metres. You'd be sick, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
right?
Sake.
Right, and they were right on the edge of a heavily mined border zone. I know, yeah, so probably just as well up to 180 metres, not 150 metres. So they then spent the next 9 hours carefully extracting themselves from the border area and hiking back the 14 kilometres to the car. They arrived home in time to call in sick from work and school the next morning.
Is this car dismantled?
No, the engine for the blower was from a motorbike. They used the kind of jump leads and the starter motor from the Trabant to jump the motorbike engine to start the blower. So the car is still...
Right, okay. Still a car.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Right, so they call in sick from work and school and get their heads down for a bit of kip. Now, as I said to you, the area they were taken off from was a restricted zone, right? The balloon was discovered that morning by a Vapo who was in the woods for...
by a who?
A Vapo, the Volkspolice.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so the ordinary police, basically,
yeah.
not the Stasi. But he shouldn't have been there. He wasn't authorised to be there. So what he was doing...
Why was he there?
I have no idea. No one knows. But anyway, he didn't report it because he would have got himself...
Because he was up to some shit.
Yeah, he was up to some shit in the forest. And,
he was probably trying to get out.
Probably, quite possibly. Yeah, but anyway, he didn't report it and it wasn't found till a couple of days later by the Stasi. That obviously sent Peter into a bit of a panic. You know, the evidence was there. The Stasi released all the information to the public of what they had found, and they asked for the public's assistance. So obviously he was worried about Leipzig and, you know, buying the material and stuff like that. So he sold his car in case that could be traced back to him. And he and Gunter got together and decided that they would really quickly make a third balloon and get the fuck out now before the Stasi get on them. Now, unfortunately, and I'm raging about this, in the movie, the reason that the Stasi are closing in on them and the tension and all that, you know, all the near misses and they're nearly getting caught, it's all completely fictional. It never actually happened. And I was raging when I discovered that because that was the bit that really got me to want to do this podcast because it was really just so tense, but it wasn't quite that close. But
I'm sure it felt that close.
I'm sure it did. Like they were living on their fucking nerves.
Yeah, well, the guy sold his car. They called in sick to school and work because if you didn't, it was like, where the fuck is Paul?
Yeah, where have you been?
Yeah.
And then they went to bed to get some sleep because they'd been up all night, you know. They went back to the drawing board, literally back to the drawing board, and they'd done the calculations. This time they would double the size of the balloon to 4,000 cubic metres. The balloon measured 20 metres or 66 feet in diameter and 25 metres or 82 feet in height. Right? Big bastard.
Yeah.
That's a big fucking balloon. So they needed 1,250 metres square of material. Right?
And, like, okay, they obviously got it because, spoiler alert, they did escape in the end. But how do you transport that amount of material?
It's very light material. It folds up.
It doesn't fucking matter.
It's a roll of it.
How big did you say it was? 4,000 square feet?
Yeah, but 1,250 metres squared. But it's on a roll.
It's 1,250. Yeah, it does matter. It's very light. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but it's a roll as well.
A ton is still a ton, whether or not it's feathers or coal.
Yeah, but that's not weight. That's metre squared. And it's on a 3 metre.
It's material.
Yeah, but it's on a 3 foot width on a roll. So it's a big roll of...
Okay. I think it'd weigh a fucking hefty amount.
It probably did. But anyway, yeah, well, the two of them carried it like a carpet on their shoulder. Well, in the movie they did anyway.
Well, you've just spoken about the movie.
Yeah, I know, yeah. But anyway, I'm about to answer your fucking question and solve your mystery. They bought it in small quantities all over the country over the course of 3 weeks.
Yeah.
There you go.
And then Olympic leg, what's his face?
Yeah. Gunther.
Yeah.
Sewed it all together. So it's a patchwork. So they bought different quantities, different colours to avoid suspicion.
Right, okay.
Right, there you go. And they drove literally all over the whole of East Germany to buy it in different towns and different cities. So that they wouldn't
arouse suspicion.
Any suspicion, right?
Yeah.
So, now wait to hear this. He of the Olympic leg. Gunther sewed the balloon using over 6 kilometres of thread.
Fuck.
That's unreal, isn't it?
Yeah.
6 kilometres of thread, and Peter rebuilt everything as before.
Yeah.
So the flamethrower, the blower, and the actual, I don't know what they call that, the fucking thing that heats the fucking flame thing.
Flue?
No, the flue is just the chimney, but the actual apparatus, the
burner. Just
the burner, that's the word I'm looking for, that'll do it. So anyway, on the 15th of September, there was a violent thunderstorm. Now, I would have thought that would be the kind of weather you wouldn't want to be going up in a hot air balloon.
I thought cloud cover when you said it.
Yeah.
Like, why would they want fucking cloud cover? Because
so they can't be safe from the ground.
Well, no, I understand that, but every air balloon, and the air balloon I was in, and I was in.
You have got hot air balloon?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying to you, the noise of it.
Yeah.
But it was clear skies, and it's somebody saying, well, there's a weather front 20 miles away, but it's not in the direction we're going. Because you don't want your balloon
getting wet, basically.
But it's not in the direction we're going.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, thumbs up, we're a go. But they do watch it that closely.
Yeah, well,
so
that's how they failed the first time, because Gunther didn't.
Yeah. So I
wondered
why. I wondered why they would choose to go up when it's cloudy. But obviously, it's
that was their thinking was fucking secrecy and not be spotted. That was that was what they didn't realize, the condensation was going to bring them back down again. But so a fucking thunderstorm though, a violent thunderstorm. And they said, that's a good time to go.
Yeah, let's go when it's pissing.
They were getting desperate, and I suppose the wind was blowing the right direction, so they said, right, fuck it, let's do this.
Now or never.
Yeah. So off they went. They set off once more for the wooded clearing in Peter's new car and a moped driven by Gunther with his wife Petra as a pillion. The balloon was inflated in just 10 minutes and needed an additional 3 minutes for them to heat it with the flamethrower to get it to kind of stand up straight or whatever, right? They lifted off just after 2 a.m. They failed to cut one of the tethers anchoring the gondola to the ground, and the whole thing tilted.
Yeah. And dragged.
No, the balloon caught fire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Wonderful. They had a fire extinguisher on hand for just such an emergency, and they managed to get the fire extinguished. They rose to 2,000 metres in just 9 minutes, drifting towards West Germany at an approximate speed of 30 kilometres an hour. The flight lasted for 28 minutes, with temperatures plummeting to minus 8 Celsius or 18 degrees Fahrenheit in the unsheltered gondola.
Yeah.
A design flaw led for the burner flume being too long, causing the flame to be too high in the balloon, creating too much pressure at the top.
Yeah.
And the balloon split. The air rushing out of the balloon caused the burner to go out, and Peter was able to reignite it several times using matches.
Fuck's sake.
To get it, yeah. At one point, they increased the flame to its maximum height, and they rose to 2,500 metres or 8,200 feet.
Wow.
That's fucking hot.
Yeah.
That's like
fucking launch the airplanes.
That's fucking commercial airline fucking like, you know?
Well.
So anyway, they learned later that they had been detected by West German radar and were designated as a UFO.
Which they would be.
Yeah. Right.
Everybody conflates UFO with aliens, but it's unidentified flying object.
Exactly, by air traffic controllers. Right?
It wasn't announced. They didn't have a flight plan. It's a UFO.
Yeah, right. Now, they were also spotted by a night watchman in Bad Lobenstein on the eastern side of the border and reported to the Stasi, who quickly activated searchlights, but the balloon was too high for the lights.
So he wasn't doing anything he shouldn't be doing, so he squealed.
Right, okay. Yeah. Right, so the propane ran out and the balloon descended quickly. Gunther, he of the Olympic legs again.
Olympic leg Gunther.
He broke his leg in the landing. I'm betting it was the one he wasn't using.
Yeah, I'd say it was, yeah.
Right, yeah, so he broke his leg in the landing, but everyone else, including the kids, were unhurt. 2 Bavarian state troopers had seen the balloon and followed it down. They quickly informed the party that they were near the town of Naila, about 10 kilometres inside West Germany.
Spell that?
Naila, Naila.
Okay.
About 10 kilometres inside of West Germany. They'd made it.
Happy days.
Right. In the aftermath, the Stasi, or the GDR government, immediately increased border security. They closed down permanently all small airfields and airports.
Wow.
And they decreed that the sale of propane tanks and suitable material for balloon making was to be prohibited without permit.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. They took it seriously. And it didn't end there, Dad. It didn't end there. For years later, the Stasi had actually sent people into the West to basically fucking try and destroy Gunther and Peter's lives. Rumours were spread about them. There was fucking, they were, and of course, as always happened when someone escaped, their entire families were arrested.
Yeah.
So Petra's mother, who wasn't well, they were arrested in jail for 2 years. For
so would they
assisting in the escape, even though they knew nothing about it.
Well, assisting in the way of not squealing.
Yeah, basically.
That's what it'd be.
Yeah.
But would they have considered that when they were escaping, that this fucks?
Oh, they knew. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely, they knew. Yeah. If they were successful, their families were going to be arrested. Yeah, absolutely. That's what always happens.
Yeah, well, I know, but I'm just saying they considered it and they still said, it's worth the risk.
We're getting out, and their parents probably told them, go, we'll handle it, go. But anyway, so the family settled in Naila. Gunther working as a car mechanic and Peter opening a TV repair shop. In 1989, when the wall fell, Peter and Doris returned to Koznik, where Peter passed away in 2017. Gunther and his family still live in Naila today.
Wow, good.
There you go. The 8 escapees were Peter Strelzik, Doris Strelzik, Frank Steldrick, age 15, Andreas Strelzik, age 11, Gunther Wetzel, Petra Wetzel, Peter Wetzel, age 5, and the youngest of them all, Andreas Wetzel, age 2.
Wow. That's a story for your grandchildren, isn't it?
Yeah, fucking right.
That'd be deadly.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's fucking fascinating. Yeah. And I really enjoyed the movie when I watched it. It's in German, but it's it's got subtitles. So if anyone wants to watch it, it's called Balloon. Oddly enough.
Yeah.
And it's really tense, and that's why I was trying to build up a bit of tension into the podcast there. And I do hope that came across in the story. Now, I know you mentioned to me off air, Del, that we have some other unusual escapes.
There's loads, and I will get into them. But there was a new race in the 1964 Olympics, I think it was.
Right.
And it was the one-legged circular race in honour of Olympic leg Gunther.
I thought you were fucking serious for a minute.
No, I'm not serious. I know nothing about the Olympics.
I love the Olympics.
No, all I can think about is the calf on the leg of that fucking sewing machine. Must have been amazing.
3 months day and night pumping the thing.
And when he broke his leg, his wife said, "You know what? You'd use the other leg as much." Or at least half as much. Split the difference.
Yeah.
Then nothing would have happened.
Wouldn't have broke.
You could have jumped over the fucking
There
wall.
was a really good fucking device used in the movie, and I'm raging that it turned out not to be true because it was so fucking typical of the Stasi. In the first attempt that came down because of the condensation, the wife had dropped her medication. Now, it didn't have her name on it or address on it.
Yeah.
But the Stasi were able to trace what chemist it came from, who in that chemist had been prescribed it, and that narrowed it down to 3 or 4 people. So they were really closing in on them.
And that's just a Hollywood thing.
Yeah. Or a German.
Or a
German cinema thing,
cinematic thing.
Yeah, let's not give Hollywood any credit for this movie. It's all German. But yeah, so it was, and that was kind of the part that really made me want to do this podcast. And I was going to do it almost like what's the word? Like a narrative, and really build the tension up. But in the end, that turned out not to be true. And I'm not going to sit here and talk about something that didn't really happen, as if it did, But I highly recommend the movie. Hope I haven't spoiled the movie. It's called Balloon.
Well, it's like when you were saying to me, don't fucking spoil it. It's when I heard you wanted to do this and I hadn't even looked it up. it was, well, they obviously fucking made it.
I know.
You know? But that's the thing.
Not even watching the movie, like, you kind of wondered, like, are they actually going to fucking make it here? Like you know what I mean? Because it was billed as an attempted escape in a hot air balloon.
Yeah.
Like, in a little blurb, Oh, shit, I was going to say something else. Oh, yeah, and there is another movie as well, back, I think a year after the escape happened. It was released by Disney. Now, I haven't seen this one. It's called Night Crossing. Haven't seen it, but it's based on the same story, but it's supposed to be very, very loosely based on the same story.
I can see the name, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, and, they sold the rights to Disney, and they were not impressed with what was produced. It's fucking Disney. What did they expect? I'm just getting, like, Mary Poppins vibes or something from it, But as I said, I haven't seen it. It's just, it's that era.
Yeah.
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang or something, the kids,
Yeah, fucking hell.
Yeah, so that's my first bit on East Germany, and I will be doing more at a later date because it's something that.
Have you ever seen Bridge of Spies?
Yes, yeah.
Fucking great film.
I want to go and see that bridge. Actually, I want to go and see that bridge. Oh, Darwin's going to Berlin this year with the school.
Oh, is he?
Bastard.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah,
fair play.
Dying to go there.
My nephew has been to, the Nuremberg Gate.
Yeah.
The big, yeah.
And
that came up. He was out with his mates, and one of them was scrolling something and doom scrolling. And he went, stop, and go back. No, up again, and stopped them. And he was like, I was there. It was Nuremberg Gate.
Yeah.
And his mate was like, so what?
Do you know what that is? Do you know what that is?
Yeah. So
the Nuremberg Gate, and obviously Checkpoint Charlie. But no, I'd love to actually go to Leipzig and see the kind of, like, they have the Stasi Museum.
Yeah.
Is in Normannenstrasse where the where the headquarters was. I'd love to go and see that. And they still have all the cloths and jars. They're all still there.
That's mad. Like the fact that they did
They have shredded documents that, what were they called? Oh, we talked about this before, Dale. Can't think what they were called, but they were the jigsaw women or something they called them. Women who, after the fall of the wall, the Stasi had tried to fucking shred everything on the way out. They painstakingly put files back together.
Like jigsaws.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is what they would call it.
They have all those documents there. Now, they have the archive where you can go as a German citizen and see your files that they had on you.
Yeah.
It's fucking,
it's nuts.
There's people finding out that their mother was fucking ratting on them, or that their father was spying on them, or their son was finding this out by reading those files. Like,
can you imagine?
It's fucking.
Can you imagine being a wife or a husband?
Yeah, find
out your partner or your spouse is a squealer.
Yeah, it's fucking mad, like.
Yeah.
But like 90% of it was fear. It was just pure fucking fear, like.
That's who you rule.
That's it. It is. And I mean, people fucking listening to that and go, how did they get away with it? Or why didn't the people revolt? Or they did it. In the end, they did. Leipzig, even before the wall came down, like. That there was the Leipzig uprising.
There was bolder and bolder protests because of the disruption and even the falling of some of the countries around Germany, Czechoslovakia and stuff like that.
You also have to remember, Dale, though, who was in power before communists.
Yeah.
So you're always going, well, at least they're not as bad as that lot,
Yeah. But that's at least
things are bad, but it's not as bad as it was.
It could be worse.
Yeah. Exactly, and they knew better than anyone how bad it could be.
There's the whole indoctrination thing as well.
Yeah, there was, absolutely. And that's, as I said at the start, I'm not a commie, but I do have sympathy.
Yeah.
That was the other thing I actually wanted to mention as well, in listening to other podcasts and reading books and stuff. The amount of East Germans who grew up in that time, or, who lived through that time, who still do not feel properly part of a united Germany. It's baffling. Because they came from a society where work was guaranteed, housing was guaranteed,
health was free, education was free.
And all of a sudden, overnight, they're thrown into a survival of the fittest fucking dogfight for services.
Yeah.
And and a lot of them found and still find it very difficult to adjust to that dog-eat-dog capitalist fucking way of
capitalist living.
Yeah.
So instead of going into the weirdest crossings, which we'll come to in a couple of minutes, let's go into the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Yes, please. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, let's do that, man.
That was great.
Because I just want to, even before we start, just say this is literally probably my earliest memory of a major international news story.
Yeah, I remember
and I think, if I'm right in saying, it coincided in around the time of the live 24-hour news station.
Yeah.
Because I remember watching it for fucking hours.
Yeah, I was 12. And of the age, going into my teenage years.
Only a year younger than you.
Who? You?
Yeah. I was 11. It was 1989. I was born in 78. I was 11.
Well, I was 73. No, Jesus Christ, I was old now, wasn't I?
Yeah,
fucking hell. I was nearly in college.
You were nearly in college?
I went to college in 1991. So Jesus, I was 17.
Wow, okay.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
There's me. I wasn't good at maths.
Yeah. No, it was my 11th birthday. That's how I remember
coming in from wherever it was I was and going, fuck.
Yeah.
And paying no more attention to it.
Yeah.
But just going, Jesus Christ. Because
No, I was glued to it. I was like, what is going on? Like, what is this?
I'm not
about,
saying I lived through the Berlin Wall, but I lived
in the shadow
through my years in the knowledge of it existed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
it was, West Good, East Bad.
I remember
that's what we were brought up with.
Yeah, West Good, East Bad. But as I said at the beginning, that's just capitalist pig dogs talking to you.
Exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, I remember seeing the press conference where your man was interviewed. And obviously it was in German.
Yeah, no, I didn't remember that at all. I have to be honest with you. It was only when I started getting back into this, more recent years that I even discovered the whole thing. The iconic imagery is what I remember. The people on the wall.
And
that
just
section of the wall just falling over.
Yeah.
I just remember, I remember wanting to be there. It looked like the best party ever.
Yeah, it was. And it was the best party ever.
Yeah, no, of course.
And I remember the press conference and I remember him talking and then the subtitled voice coming in.
Yeah.
And talking.
That was bizarre.
And then your man from the audience. Okay, so for anybody that doesn't know, and I think we all do, 9th of November 1989 was when the Berlin Wall came down, right? And it had been there's that iconic thing where Reagan said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." That was 1987.
Yeah.
So there was, as we alluded to earlier, there was talk about it.
And I mean, by that stage too, it wasn't Mr. Gorbachev's wall to tear down anyway.
No.
They might have built it, but East Germany was an autonomous. Now, obviously, it was a satellite state of Russia. I'm not going to say that they didn't have any influence or anything like that, but it was an autonomous sovereign state.
Yeah, it had its own autonomy, but it was
very
communist
much under
controlled.
The influence. Yeah,
it was.
of course, it was.
Yeah, so it was.
Yeah,
but that was 1987, and then at 6:57 on the 9th of November 1989, there was just another bullshit press conference after a long day.
Yeah, and more Politburo crap.
This guy, and I didn't even get his name.
Well, in fairness, though, it wasn't just another bullshit press conference. They were making the announcement. They just weren't making the...
No. What they were saying was, it was just a long, boring political press conference.
Yes.
It was just after a long, boring day. And someone handed him a memo that he didn't get to read before he went on.
Yeah.
And he was saying,
at the end of the press conference,
no longer will people have to go through that horribly long bureaucratic process of paperwork and more paperwork to apply to be able to go to the West.
Yeah.
You can just apply, get okayed, and then go. They were simplifying it.
Yeah.
And an immediate follow-up question from a journalist in the audience was, when does this take place? And he flipped through his notes, and you can see him if you go and look at it on YouTube. You can see him flipping through his notes.
Nothing in his notes.
And he goes,
now,
immediately, with immediate effect. It was supposed
to be a few days.
It was supposed to be the next morning when the passport office opened. And tens of thousands of people descended on the Berlin Wall.
It was the taxi drivers who were forced to know.
I don't know who was forced
because they were allowed to go east to west.
Well, I don't know, but tens of thousands of people descended on the Berlin Wall. And the guards were overwhelmed almost immediately and kind of read the room, inverted commas, and went, no way I'm fucking standing up to this shit.
I don't think that standing up to them. It's if we open fire here, it's a fucking massacre.
That's what I mean. I'm not stopping them. That's what I mean, standing up to it. I'm not stopping this shit. And there was one commander, and he was standing at the wall, and there was a woman talking to him, and it's in German, but it's subtitled. And she's saying, my parents are in there. Are you telling me that I can go in right now and see them? And he stood aside and he went, yep.
And he lifted the barrier for her.
And she kissed him.
He lifted the barrier, yeah.
It was brilliant.
I remember. But then later on that night, they were threatening to shoot people on the wall. They wanted people off. They wanted to kind of try and control the fucking propaganda as usual. And they were all dancing on the wall and taking chips out of the wall and breaking the wall. And they did then actually kind of rally, and they threatened to shoot anyone who was on the wall. You could be at the wall, you could go through the border crossing, but if you got on the wall later on that night, you would have been shot.
That doesn't make sense. That's just somebody trying to hang on with their last fucking fingertip nail grip. That's bullshit.
Well, it was the aforementioned Erich Honecker.
Yeah.
Erich Honecker.
All right.
The head of Stasi.
Still, no, I'm in control. Yeah. Fuck, no one's in control. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it was great. It was great to see a man flipping through and he was like, now, immediately. It was just like, and just. Yeah.
Yeah. And then even then, later, was it 1991, was it, when they had the forced free elections in the unified Germany?
Yeah.
They weren't free elections. They weren't fucking free elections at all, because the West, again, pumped huge amounts of money into the anti-communist parties. And it would have been very interesting to see how the East would have voted in that election had it not been very much stacked against them in that way. Because, as I was saying, there were plenty of people in the East.
I was just thinking of the people that you'd mentioned that, you wonder how that would have gone. But we can interest them. Yeah, it's weird.
Now, look, I'm not saying fucking German reunification was a bad thing. It's, tearing down walls is never a bad thing. It's never a bad thing. I cannot wait for the day when they tear down the peace walls in Belfast. When they're no longer needed. And obviously, when the border's removed as well, me being a Republican, that kind of symbology, that peace wall in Belfast, that's our Berlin Wall,
Yeah.
The fact that that's needed, or it's still perceived to be needed, is, fucking walls don't fucking unite anyone. Walls don't solve any fucking problems, So
gonna knock into my neighbour next. Gonna knock and tear down that wall.
The kind of wall I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I do.
Tear
down that wall. My fucking dog can't get in and piss in your garden.
We need to come together, not fucking divide.
Yeah, anyway. Weirdest attempts to cross.
Right, go on.
I looked this up, and first of all, with your balloon thing, when I looked it up, and I deliberately stayed away, but I was like, fucking 1979?
Yeah,
and I heard Colin from the room, is everything okay, from the other room? I was like, yeah, it's grand. Fucking 79?
You thought it was
so recent.
Yeah, you thought it was a lot further back in the past.
Yeah, I really did. But 1963.
Yeah.
This guy, Wolfgang Engels, he was an army mechanic, and he was working with his platoon, I guess. And the mechanics were working, and they were on their lunch break. And on the lunch break, while they were all having a break, he stole an APC. And he drove towards the Berlin Wall, and he stopped on the street. And it was like the cops, the regular cops, not the Stasi, would be used to seeing military police or military vehicles. And they
open the border.
They moved the traffic room. Get out of the fucking way. Here comes an ambulance. That kind of energy.
Yeah.
And he was stopping at crowds of youths, and he was saying, I'm going to the West. He wants to go. And they were all saying, nope, no chance. Because this guy from the army is saying, do you want to get the fuck out of here? He was like, do you want to get the fuck out of here? And they're like, no, you're okay. Because we're not going to get fucking interrogated and locked up and sleep deprivation, all that kind of thing. Yeah. And so nobody did. And when he got closer to the wall, he floored it. And they started noticing at the wall. He just went through the barriers and went right through the wall, and they started shooting at him. And he went halfway through the wall and got stuck. And when he got out, like the cab was obviously on the western side, and when he got out, he got shot twice. And a Western soldier pulled him to safety, and he recovered in hospital.
And that caused a major diplomatic incident, and that's why they never assisted escapers ever again, I believe. Here's one for you, Nell, actually, just before you move on to your next one. It was just something popped into my head there. Have you ever seen The Spy Who Came In From the Cold?
Yes, that's vaguely familiar to me.
It opens with the guy coming across Checkpoint Charlie on his bike.
No.
And he gets shot in the back as he comes across.
No.
Do you know where it was filmed?
Where?
Smithfield Square.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow. Because that was...
Doubles as Checkpoint Charlie.
Well, before it was redone.
And then at the end of the movie, he gets shot at the wall and it's the fucking Point Depot.
What?
The big wall at the Point Depot.
Yeah.
That's the Berlin Wall.
What you were saying earlier about a lot of people feel like they're dislocated because they're not in the society they grew up in and what they knew.
Yeah.
This is the guy, he became a teacher.
Right.
And this is the guy who his ma disowned him. And you'd think maybe it's for her safety that she's doing it, but disowned him. She was a staunch communist supporter. And after the Berlin Wall came down, she never spoke to him again. So it was still, she was a communist at heart. And she went, that is not my fucking son. And she never spoke to him again. And he stayed in West Germany. Can you imagine that being your teacher?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be fucking amazing. Yeah. That'd be amazing. Jesus Christ. Anyway, speaking of students, there was a group of students, and I don't have the year, I don't think. Actually, it might be 1962. So I'm not doing this chronologically.
Is this Tunnel 29?
I don't know what number it was, but a group of students decided to construct a tunnel under the wall to help people escape. NBC, the news channel, agreed to fund the whole dig so they could have exclusive rights to the dig.
Yeah,
and when they started the tunnel, they had restrooms, not restrooms go to the toilet, but rooms to rest and sleep in and washrooms down below.
Yeah.
So they could work on the tunnel, go back, get cleaned up, and then rest and then go back into the tunnel or leave and come back and blah, blah, blah.
Not look suspicious.
Because I'm sure it would have been stopped coming from the west as well. I mean, there has to be some sort of modicum of control. So it might have been as rigorously policed.
No. The west wanted you escaping. Oh, that was, that undermined.
Well, that'd be why NBC.
Yeah, no, that undermined the fucking communist fucking state, you know. They were paying people to fucking escape, you know.
Yeah.
They were paying people to come over.
By late September 1962, the tunnel was ready to use. And via coded messages over shortwave radio, which a lot of them had, and probably even fucking flag waving and pigeons and whatnot, over 2 dozen East Berliners escaped.
Yeah.
And there were men, women, children escaped to the west through that tunnel.
Yeah, but then they were betrayed as well.
The tunnel had to be abandoned because it started to leak. And when soil gets wet, you know yourself, it falls even the struts didn't keep it up. So they stopped using it. And it was only discovered 11 days later when the road collapsed. And the guards would have seen it with their dogs and they were, what the fuck is this and this kind of thing. But it had been disused for 11 days.
Well, anyway, come here, listen. If you're fascinated by that, and I'm talking to Del and the audience here, the NBC documentary is on YouTube.
It is. Yeah.
It's fucking savage. But the earlier podcast that I mentioned, the BBC, what's it called? BBC Inquires? Yeah, it's BBC Inquires. It's called Tunnel 29. It's absolutely fabulous. It's a great story.
Post all these links in the comment section after we do this.
I definitely will, because it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah. This guy called Horst Klein, he was a trapeze artist. This is what I was talking about when you were saying they were going, what were you saying? Olympic leg Gunther and his mate
Peter
said they were going to pretend to be. And I said, no need for fucking paperwork in a society so full of needing paperwork.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
So this guy, Horst Klein, was a trapeze artist, legitimately a trapeze artist. Right. In early 1963, he climbed an unused telegraph pole, pulled himself hand over hand on the wire across the wall 20 meters above the heads of the patrolling guards.
No way. And they never spotted him.
Never spot. Well, why would you look up?
I know,
it's probably your fucking job.
And they had those Pete's hats as well. They literally don't look up like.
He started to get tired and then pulled himself up onto the wire. So he was lying on it and it's over his neck, his chest, and down through his legs. And he's pulling himself along on top of it. Have you ever tried which is why being a trapeze artist stood to him.
Yeah.
Getting up on
So
a fucking wire when you're underhand, when you're under a wire, underhand, like going hand over hand, try and get up onto the fucking thing. Jesus Christ. He was a trapeze artist. So
try and do a chin up, like.
But he got tired, and at some stage he swung back down underneath because he just lost his balance, or he was just too tired to hold himself up, and he fell off the wire. But he fell off the wire on the west side of the wall.
Deadly.
And he survived.
That's where you want to fall.
And he survived.
Deadly.
He had 2 broken arms.
Okay. So he was in hospital with Gunther.
Yeah. No, Olympic leg Gunther. Yeah. What happened to you? I fell off a wire. What happened to you? I was in an air balloon accident.
Fell over an air balloon.
Yeah. In 1983.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they were still doing up to like 89 up to the wall came down. They were still fucking escaping.
8 years after, a guy named Ingo Bethke escaped to East Berlin. His brother Holger took his own chance. Ingo had crept across a minefield on a foggy night, and then he paddled across the Elbe. So, like, crept across a fucking minefield.
So it's just lottery. Just a lottery.
Yeah.
Absolute lottery, yeah.
And I've no idea how he would have... There was a mine there. There was a mine there. Don't step there. So what do you do? Like, fucking hell. But he then paddled across the Elbe and he got to his freedom. So it was a very simple thing, a very risky thing, but a very simple thing for him to do. His brother, Holger, and his friend, Michael Becker, pretended that they were circus performers. This is what I was talking to you about, the need for paperwork.
Right, okay.
The need for no paperwork for people to say who they were in a society that lived on fucking paperwork, thrived on paperwork. And they said, we're circus performers. What do you do? I perform in the circus. Okay, where's your paperwork? Oh, it's in my other pants.
I left it in my
so they were in the public park practicing archery and had a drawing pad and a pencil and were drawing where best they would cross the wall.
Right.
Okay? After weeks of this, they said, right, this is where we're going to go here. This is what we're going to do. And they went into a disused house by the border on the eastern side. So obviously everybody
hadn't been blocked up yet.
Yeah. And even if it was, they got their way in and went up to the attic and stayed there for 13 hours. Just they'd probably set up a time. Just watching them and seeing when's the optimum time to go.
Yeah, probably timing the guards and how long it takes them to walk a circuit.
And we go now. Yeah. You know, that kind of thing. They shot an arrow over the wall with a wire attached to it that their brother, Ingo, was on the other side, was going to get, and he was going to attach it. And the first 2 attempts failed. How do you fucking shoot an arrow? Shit, it didn't work. Pull the wire back up and wait until the guards pass again. I mean, the risk involved. Fuck that big time. Shit. Yeah. And it's like a movie thing. The third attempt, it went over, and he got this light wire, and obviously he pulled it across, and he fucking tied it to his car, and it was secured in the attic where Holger and Michael were. Yeah. And
they zipped.
Homemade pulleys. They zip-lined the way across, but they didn't anticipate the angle of descent.
Right.
And short of over the wall, they slowed to a stop.
No,
they had to go hand over hand over hand. They eventually got in a window on the west side and they made it.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah.
Fucking, can you imagine? We're ziplining our way to freedom. This is going to be great, Michael. Waiting. And then, shit, slow. And
you're wiggling.
Just trying to
get some more momentum.
Get a bit of momentum.
Yeah. Jeez.
Fucking hell. That's nuts.
That's nuts, man.
Obviously, the Stasi and the guards and all that kind of shit didn't look up much.
No, as I said, they wore those big pea caps.
Even the fucking dogs didn't look up.
Yeah. The dogs can't look up.
Dogs can.
Yeah. I thought that was mad.
Did you
ever see Banksy's thing? He's up on a railway bridge doing his thing, yeah? And there's 2 English coppers right below the bridge with the peaked hats on. And he said, you ever want to,
Yeah.
They can't see above the peak. Unless they literally go like that,
Yeah. In the fucking peak, in the history of bad design.
Yeah, that's it.
What we The guards.
I keep forgetting this is an audio format. And I'm like, when you go like that,
yeah,
I'm leaning right back, folks.
When you crane your neck and look up,
right back. Yeah.
Fucking crazy. And I haven't seen the Berlin Wall.
I haven't seen it. I'm going to really want to see it. I really want to go to Berlin. I really do. And not just, for that kind of part of it, the history, the Führer bunker or what's left of it. Oh, actually, just on that as well, just talking about Berlin. Did you hear what they've done with Adolf Hitler's birthplace?
No.
It was a magnet for neo-Nazis, and that type who would always go and kind of pay homage or whatever. Yeah, turned it into a bit of a shrine. So they turned it into a police station.
Good.
Try coming and visiting it now, you gonks.
Yeah. So that was it for the fucking Berlin Wall.
Yeah, well, for the East German border.
Yep.
Or the anti-fascist protection rampart. Now, please give it its right title.
Yeah.
Give it its correct title.
It still exists in parts.
It does. There's bits of it there.
And it's a monument.
Yeah, it's a monument to man's inhumanity to man, I suppose, in many ways. And it's something I really want to go and see. As I said, I have a piece of it on my desk, and I often just sit there, just kind of, just kind of rubbing it, and just,
Okay, that's.
No, I don't mean. You know what I mean. I just hold it, and, but just no, it's so iconic. It's so historical, and it's so iconic to my early life as well. As I said, one of my very earliest memories is when that was coming down, and watching that day, never dreamed that I'd ever own a piece of it. That was kind of
Yeah, a lot of stuff I read up on, I found myself thinking, why the fuck wasn't history this interesting
in school?
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
And like in my 5th and 6th year, I had a brilliant history teacher, and she was passionate. She loved what she was teaching, and it was a joy.
I never had a decent history teacher. I love history.
It was, and one of my friends, I know, he's
sorry if you're listening,
passionately brilliant about history, and when he teaches it, he's saying it with emotion. Like, he's not reading text from a book and everybody trying to page 54 and all that kind of thing.
My secondary school history, I think I dropped history for the leaving, actually.
No,
I love history.
I kept it, and it was great, and she was great.
Because I remember one teacher, and she was just obsessed with dates and learning dates by rote. Dates of when things happened. Like, it was fucking mind-numbing. And I love history. I'm passionate about history. That wasn't history that we were learning. It was exam history. It was learning to pass exams, without having any kind of passion at all.
Well, that's education nowadays, anyway.
I know, but this was
problem with the education system because of that.
No, but this was just particularly
regurgitation.
Regurgitation by rote.
Not teaching you to think.
I mean, even looking back, I studied World War II, World War I and World War II for fucking 6 years in school or whatever. So it was only 2 years later when I started reading books about things I actually understood it. I knew all the events and what happened, but I didn't understand what those actually meant, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Particularly the First World War, fucking Archduke Ferdinand and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And Sarajevo, and I had no idea why any of that was relevant, But there was no context. It was all just learn by rote and remember dates.
Yep. Okay.
This happened on that date. Don't know why, but it did.
On that note.
Yeah, listen, I really hope you enjoyed that one. We're definitely going to revisit East Germany again sometime, because there is so many fascinating stories, so many human stories from that time period, and I really want to come back to it at some stage. So I hope you look forward to it as much as I look forward to doing it. And don't forget to like and subscribe on the page. On our Spotify, you can follow us on Spotify and you'll be notified every time we drop a new episode. I know we swore we weren't going to do that and kind of start asking for likes and subscribes, but we really want to grow this.
Generally, we got to share. Yeah.
So
and
share,
look out,
do all that cool stuff.
Look out for our new logo and our new video.
Yes, and
And we will see you.
And we will endeavour to keep